Millionaire rejected his ex-pregnant wife, then publicly kissed his new wife to prove his love. Lucas Davenport appeared to have it all: wealth built from his shrewd tech investments, a sleek Manhattan penthouse, and the poised, picture-perfect wife by his side. But beneath the glitzy facade lay a trail of secrets and heartbreak that even his millions couldn't gloss over. His former marriage to Bianca sparked headlines when it imploded, and he vowed never to look back. Now, against the backdrop of an elite charity gala, Lucas is determined to prove to his critics, to the tabloids, and to Bianca herself, that he's moved on for good. With one daring, very public kiss of his new wife, he sets the stage for a firestorm of scandal and revelation that will either strengthen his new life or shatter it all over again. Lucas Davenport did not come from old money or any kind of privileged background. Born in a modest suburb outside Boston, he learned early on that the only way to achieve his dreams was relentless ambition. He discovered his knack for technology in high school, spending hours coding rudimentary programs on outdated computers while his friends played sports or hung out at the local mall. In college, he launched his first startup, a digital marketing platform, and sold it before graduation for a seven-figure sum. From that point on, Lucas's life seemed charmed. Every risk he took paid off, every venture soared. By his mid-20s, Lucas had amassed a small fortune. He owned an upscale loft in Cambridge, drove a sleek BMW, and dazzled people with a confidence beyond his years. Major tech investors like Kevin Harrington took notice, occasionally inviting Lucas to conferences and dinners. On one memorable evening, he even attended a private event in Omaha with Warren Buffett, forging networks that would shape his future. Before 30, Lucas rebranded himself as a budding billionaire, though his actual net worth hovered in the high eight figures. It was during one such tech summit in San Francisco that Lucas first encountered Bianca. She was working as a junior public relations associate tasked with handling VIP guests. She had big, expressive eyes and an air of quiet determination that intrigued him far more than the usual starstruck fawning he often experienced. A single night of conversation turned into a month of intense phone calls across coasts. Despite their differing backgrounds, she was from a working-class family in Detroit. They found a shared sense of ambition in each other. Within a year, they were married in a lavish ceremony that made headlines across Silicon Valley. At first, the couple was unstoppable. Bianca's flair for PR boosted Lucas's reputation, while Lucas's unstoppable drive elevated them into the highest circles of influence. They attended galas, hosted by the Friedman and Friedman Associates, or philanthropic icons, where they shared dinner tables with the likes of Mark Cuban, Mark Zuckerberg, and other luminaries in the tech world. Their life was a heady cocktail of success, glamour, and possibility. Bianca became adept at navigating those social waters, stepping into the role of gracious hostess at every event. But over time, cracks formed. Lucas's ambitions were never satisfied. He wanted bigger deals, more acquisitions, and an ever-expanding empire. Bianca, who once thrived in the limelight, began to feel overlooked in her husband's relentless pursuit of success. Late-night arguments replaced the romantic dinners. Shouted accusations about neglected emotional needs replaced the playful banter they once shared. Despite their glossy outward image, those cracks widened until they became impossible to ignore. What began as the ultimate power couple narrative turned into a cautionary tale. A marriage built in the high-stakes world of money and fame can crumble under the same weight that once elevated it. Lucas tried to salvage it, but in the end, the unstoppable train of his ambition paired with Bianca's growing frustrations was too much. Their breakup was swift and explosive. Before either of them fully grasped it, divorce papers were signed, splashed across page 6, and dissected on entertainment blogs. And so, the myth of Lucas and Bianca Davenport ended. But for Lucas, the story was far from over. He refused to let heartbreak overshadow his empire. With a fierce determination, he navigated scandal and heartbreak, and soon found himself stepping onto yet another new path that would lead to the biggest twist in his personal life yet. The public divorce from Lucas Davenport hit Bianca harder than she ever anticipated. In the early days of their separation, she maintained a brave front, telling friends she was relieved to shed the weight of a marriage that had become stifling. Yet, the sense of emptiness that followed her every step felt crushing. She gave up the lavish penthouse in San Francisco, the expensive parties, and the daily intrusion of paparazzi snapping her photograph. Instead, she retreated to a small condo in Detroit, where the whispering city lights were a far cry from the dazzling brilliance of Lucas's world. Bianca had grown accustomed to the high society life, where she was always introduced as Lucas Davenport's wife, or at times, the rising star in public relations, married to the unstoppable entrepreneur. During their marriage, she rubbed elbows with wealthy philanthropists, networked with real estate mogul John Friedman, and even traveled internationally to help Lucas charm potential investors. That identity ended abruptly the moment she walked out of Lucas's mansion with a suitcase of clothes and an unsettled heart. At first, she tried to continue her PR career under her old name, Bianca Davenport, but quickly discovered doors that once opened with a single phone call were now slamming shut. Her professional reputation, once entwined with Lucas's glowing image, lost its shine post-divorce. Some prospective clients worried about drama overshadowing their campaigns if they hired Lucas Davenport's ex-wife. Others simply didn't return her calls, assuming she no longer had the same insider influence. Alone in Detroit, Bianca spent her days applying for jobs and battling the swirling vortex of tabloid headlines. Some newspapers speculated she had cheated, others blamed Lucas's unstoppable ambition. The truth was more nuanced. Their divorce was the final symptom of a deeper incompatibility. Yet scandal sells better than a measured account of drifting apart, so Bianca found her face plastered on gossip websites, accompanied by lurid, misleading headlines like "Spurned Ex-Wife Plans Revenge" and "Bianca's Secret. Did she drive Lucas Davenport away?" The emotional toll of these accusations grew too heavy to ignore. She stopped checking social media, blocked online tabloids, and spent her evenings reading old text messages from Lucas bitters, sweet reminders of a time they had both been bright-eyed and hopeful. She realized how ironically empty her new routine was. For a woman who once orchestrated large-scale PR campaigns, living a quiet life in a modest condo felt alien. Yet, Bianca wasn't devoid of resilience. She told herself that her survival hinged on rediscovering who she was without Lucas. She took up freelance PR gigs for small businesses in Detroit and volunteered at a local women's shelter, offering guidance on communication strategies. Slowly, she began to reclaim her sense of purpose. Away from the billionaire spotlights, she nurtured a different side of herself, one driven not by socialite demands, but by genuine empathy and the need for connection. Still, at night, she fought the ache of longing for the man she had once loved and the sense of belonging she had enjoyed in that glamorous world. She didn't know if she wanted Lucas back or just the life they had built. All she knew was that her identity was changing, and the path to her new self had only just begun. While Bianca struggled to reclaim her footing, Lucas navigated his post-divorce life with an alarming ease, at least on the surface. He shifted his operations from San Francisco to Manhattan, lured by the city's financial pulse and unparalleled opportunities for high-profile deals. In less than a year, Lucas orchestrated a series of tech acquisitions that catapulted his net worth even further, ensuring his name remained a staple in business media headlines. This was when Corinne Langford entered the picture. They met at a charity auction in Manhattan, one organized by the Friedman Foundation to raise funds for underprivileged students pursuing STEM degrees. Corinne was there as a representative of her family's philanthropic trust, the Langford Initiative, which provided microloans to small business owners. Fluent in 4 languages, with a sharp mind for finance, Corinne was unlike any woman Lucas had encountered since his divorce. Over a private dinner, they discovered shared interests ranging from global entrepreneurship to classical art. Corinne's father, Robert Langford, was a retired hedge fund manager who had built a reputation for philanthropic generosity throughout New York. Corinne herself had studied at Yale, spent time in Nairobi developing microloan programs, and returned to Manhattan with a fierce determination to make a name for herself. Their courtship was nothing short of meteoric. Within months, the tabloids were abuzz with stories of Lucas and Corinne's whirlwind romance, capturing snapshots of them at exclusive galas in Monaco or strolling hand in hand through Central Park. The paparazzi dubbed them the new power couple, overshadowing any mention of Bianca in Lucas's narrative. Friends in high places, like investor Mark Cuban, expressed genuine surprise at how quickly Lucas seemed to have moved on. Yet from the outside, it appeared perfect. Corinne's philanthropic aura and Lucas's entrepreneurial success melded into an enviable synergy. Behind closed doors, Lucas discovered that Corinne had her own brand of ambition, one aligned with making the world a better place, but also ensuring her family's philanthropic legacy soared. She had no interest in living in anyone's shadow. She intended to be a partner of equal standing. Their synergy was electric. While Lucas negotiated multi-million-dollar contracts, Corinne championed charitable partnerships that gave Davenport Enterprises a more benevolent face. Together, they formed a modern, philanthropic-tinged empire. However, a tiny voice in Lucas's mind occasionally questioned the speed of it all. Despite the intense attraction and shared values, some nights he lay awake recalling Bianca's laughter, the old in-jokes they had once shared. He told himself that love should never dwell on the past, that forging ahead was the only way to live. Still, the dissonance lingered, quietly gnawing at the back of his thoughts. Corinne, meanwhile, remained largely unbothered by Lucas's past. She believed in fresh starts and felt no need to dwell on a marriage that had ended. To her, Bianca was simply an ex, someone who might have shaped Lucas's earlier experiences, but held no power over their present. Soon, Lucas decided that he couldn't allow any lingering shadows to haunt him. He proposed to Corinne in front of the iconic Bethesda fountain in Central Park, ring in hand, paparazzi capturing every second. The tabloids roared their approval. A new era was dawning for Lucas Davenport, with a new partner by his side, a partner whose vow, he believed, would carry him into a future unburdened by old heartbreak. Bianca first heard about Lucas's engagement through a gossip blog she had been resolutely avoiding. A friend texted her, urging caution before checking the site. Curiosity won out. She found herself staring at a photograph of Lucas kneeling before a radiant Corinne in Central Park, his eyes brimming with a tenderness that Bianca once believed was reserved only for her. The news sank into her heart like a stone, dredging up feelings she thought she'd buried. Detroit life now felt quieter than ever. She had found small PR contracts and was making enough to keep her condo without dipping into the meager divorce settlement. Yet, seeing Lucas so publicly besotted with another woman triggered a swirl of regret, resentment, and sadness. She tried to tell herself she had no right to those emotions after all. She and Lucas had parted ways. But heartbreak never did pay heed to logic. She avoided the tabloids thereafter, pouring herself into volunteer work at the women's shelter. Still, she couldn't entirely shut out the rumor mill. One day, an unexpected opportunity arose. A well-known business consultant named Amanda Friedman from Friedman and Friedman Associates reached out. Amanda had once admired Bianca's PR finesse at a gala in San Francisco and needed help organizing a major women's entrepreneurship summit in New York City. The request carried a glimmer of professional redemption and, ironically, it was in Lucas's new city, Manhattan. Hesitant but driven by a desire to reclaim her career, Bianca accepted the contract. She boarded a plane to Manhattan with a new sense of determination. For too long, she had let heartbreak define her. Now, she aimed to prove she could stand on her own 2 feet in the city that once belonged to Lucas's world. The summit was a grand affair, hosted at a posh Midtown hotel. Bianca's PR strategies clicked effortlessly into gear. She arranged press coverage, coordinated guest speakers, and crafted compelling narratives around the event's mission. By the second day, the conference was a roaring success, replete with influential figures from business, philanthropy, and media. That evening, a reception was held in the hotel's ballroom, a lavish space with high ceilings, marble floors, and glittering chandeliers. As Bianca circulated, ensuring everything ran smoothly, she spotted a sudden commotion near the entrance. A wave of murmurs spread through the crowd. Someone important had arrived. Her pulse quickened. Entering the ballroom, clad in a tailored navy suit, was Lucas Davenport, arm in arm with Corinne Langford. They were guests of Amanda Friedman, who believed Lucas might be interested in funding one of the entrepreneurs pitching at the summit. The sight of Lucas caused a jolt in Bianca's chest, a mixture of nerves, longing, and apprehension. His gaze swept the room, eventually landing on her. For a second, time stood still. Bianca considered slipping away to avoid a dramatic confrontation, but her professional obligations mandated she stay. If fate brought them face to face in this environment, perhaps it was a sign, though whether it signaled closure or chaos remained to be seen. The buzz in the ballroom soared to new heights. The moment Lucas Davenport walked in, attendees whispered among themselves. The tech mogul was known for lavish deals and a colorful personal life. Some recognized Corinne's philanthropic work with the Langford Initiative, while others simply stared, captivated by a power couple in their midst. Bianca hovered near a display table, showcasing promotional materials for the summit's keynote speakers. She strove to appear busy, adjusting brochures and double-checking name tags, but her pulse was hammering in her ears. She had replayed numerous scenarios of how she and Lucas might cross paths again. None matched the surreal reality of him standing less than 20 feet away, chatting amiably with event organizers. Corinne, ever gracious, recognized Bianca first. She gave a small wave, her expression friendly yet uncertain. It was clear she knew who Bianca was. Tactically, Bianca responded with a polite nod, forcing a composure she didn't entirely feel. Her stomach knotted at the memory of that engagement photo in Central Park. Lucas, kneeling with a ring, Corinne beaming with joy. It was Lucas who approached her, exhaling a hesitant greeting. "Bianca," he said quietly, his usually confident voice tinged with unease. She offered a faint smile, unsure if it resembled relief or sorrow. He continued, "I didn't realize you were involved in this summit. I'm, here as a potential investor. Amanda Friedman invited me." Bianca managed a measured response. "I'm assisting with PR." Amanda needed someone with a background in tech events. And, well, here I am. Their conversation was stiff, loaded with unspoken history. For all the heartbreak, they had once loved each other deeply. The swirl of memories, the wedding, the arguments. The final day of signing divorce papers hung between them like an invisible barrier. Corinne joined them, her arm slipping around Lucas's in a graceful gesture of ownership. "Bianca, I've heard so much about your work. Thank you for everything you've done to make tonight a success," she said genuinely. Bianca detected no malice in Corinne's tone. If anything, there was kindness tinged with curiosity. She forced another polite smile. "I'm happy to help, and congratulations on your engagement." The words tasted bitter, but she willed them out with practiced composure. Corinne's face lit up in a soft blush. "Thank you. We're both thrilled. The wedding date isn't set, but we're aiming for next summer." "Wonderful," Bianca replied, feeling her throat tighten. Meanwhile, Lucas's eyes flickered between them, anxiety etched on his face. Perhaps he worried Bianca would cause a scene, or maybe he felt guilt or pity. The moment hung precariously. Before tension could explode, Amanda Friedman swooped in with her usual dynamism. "Ah, Lucas, Corinne, Bianca, fantastic. I see you've met. Lucas, I have some potential innovators to introduce you to," Amanda said, steering them toward the other side of the ballroom. And so, the first face-to-face reunion between Lucas and Bianca ended as abruptly as it began, without confrontation or closure. Bianca let out a shaky breath. She was proud she hadn't crumbled, but a swirl of conflicted emotions still clung to her heart. Tonight had proven that her past was not as distant as she hoped, and facing it might be the only path forward. In the days following the summit, rumors flared across social media and certain business circles. Was Lucas Davenport still harboring feelings for his ex-wife? The speculation stemmed from attendees who had witnessed their guarded reunion in the hotel ballroom. A few swore they saw a flicker of longing in Lucas's gaze whenever he looked at Bianca. Others insisted Bianca appeared haunted by unresolved feelings herself. Blogs and tabloids lapped up the gossip, painting lurid scenarios about a potential love triangle. Bianca brushed off these rumors as sensational nonsense. She was no homewrecker, nor did she aspire to re-enter the chaotic swirl of Lucas's mega-million life. However, people kept texting her links to articles with headlines like "Davenport's ex and new fiancé in same room, is drama brewing." She responded politely, refusing to feed the tabloids. Yet each headline stung, reminding her that society at large still defined her by her former marriage. Lucas, on the other hand, found the rumors more troubling. He had spent months cultivating the image of a man entirely over his past. Being linked back to Bianca posed an unwelcome complication, especially with Corinne, who prided herself on clarity and forward momentum. Though he never doubted his decision to move on, the mention of an unresolved emotional bond lurked in the back of his thoughts, prompting him to recall memories of his marriage to Bianca that he tried hard to suppress. Corinne noticed his restlessness. Late one night, in the living room of their sleek Manhattan penthouse, she confronted him gently. "Lucas, I've read the stories. Do I need to be worried?" She asked this not in anger, but with genuine concern. Lucas assured her with a steady gaze. "No, you don't. Bianca and I have closure, even if we never had that final heart-to-heart. We drifted apart long ago. The gossip only sells because we were high-profile when we split." He added a tender brush of his fingers across her cheek. "Corinne, you're my present and future." That reassurance seemed enough for Corinne, who took him at his word. Still, something in Lucas's tone suggested that he was convincing himself as well. He realized that he and Bianca had never truly sat down to bury the past. Their divorce concluded abruptly, overshadowed by lawyers and PR spin. Perhaps part of him wanted that conversation for his own peace of mind, if nothing else. Meanwhile, Bianca debated her next career moves. Amanda Friedman was thrilled with her performance at the summit, offering a steady flow of freelance PR projects in New York. A relocation from Detroit began to seem not just possible, but appealing. The idea of living in the same city as Lucas and Corinne unsettled her, but she also refused to let the fear of awkward run-ins dictate her life. One afternoon, while packing for a business trip, Bianca received a text from an unknown number. "Bianca, it's Lucas. Could we meet? There are things I'd like to clear up. No pressure, just let me know." Her heart pounded. She had told herself she was ready to move forward, yet was a final conversation the key to truly letting go? Carefully, she typed a response, "I'll hear you out. But let's be sure it's in a neutral setting." She hit send, uncertain whether she was courting closure or chaos. Bianca chose the setting for their meeting, a cozy cafe tucked away on Manhattan's Upper West Side, called Sycamore and Company. Its warm atmosphere, filled with the aroma of freshly roasted coffee beans, seemed like a world apart from the sleek offices and lavish galas that defined Lucas's routine. She thought the quiet simplicity might offer them both a chance to speak candidly. Lucas arrived a few minutes before the agreed time, wearing an elegant navy blazer and pacing near a corner table. His eyes lit up the moment Bianca stepped inside. She approached with measured steps, feeling her pulse thrumming. "Stay calm. You're here for closure," she reminded herself. They greeted each other awkwardly. Once they'd both ordered cappuccinos, Bianca broke the ice. "So, you wanted to talk. Now's your chance." Her tone was businesslike, but a hint of nervous tension laced her words. Lucas exhaled slowly. "Bianca, I just want you to know that I never intended to hurt you the way I did. I realize that my ambition overshadowed our marriage, and you ended up lost in the shuffle of my dreams." Bianca's gaze shifted to the swirl of foam atop her cappuccino. "I appreciate the apology," she replied quietly, "but we can't change the past. We're both living different lives now." He nodded, fiddling with his coffee cup. "I also need you to know that what the tabloids are saying about me being torn between you and Corinne, it's not real. I love Corinne, and we're getting married. I don't want any misunderstanding about that." A pang, sharp and sudden, constricted Bianca's chest. Even if she had no illusions about reconciling, hearing him reaffirm his devotion to Corinne stirred up a tangle of emotions: regret, nostalgia, perhaps even a hint of jealousy. She breathed in, determined to remain composed. "I'm not looking to interfere in your life, Lucas. My priority is moving on. If anything, I want to do that without these rumors swirling." Lucas studied her face, noting the slight tremor in her lower lip. "Then maybe we can show a united front. Let people see we're at peace, that we've wished each other well, and there's no lingering drama." She arched an eyebrow. "And how do you propose we do that?" He hesitated, then ventured. "Corinne and I are hosting a benefit gala for the Langford Initiative next month. Maybe you could attend as a guest publicly. That would squash any speculation about a feud." Bianca's eyes widened. The idea of attending a glittering event hosted by Lucas and his fiancée felt like stepping into a lion's den. She pictured the cameras, the onlookers. "I'm not sure that's such a good idea," she responded, voice tight. Lucas leaned forward, sincerity radiating from his gaze. "Look, I understand your hesitation, but if we appear cordial in public, even just for one evening, it'll close this chapter for good. You can show you're not clinging to the past, and I can show the world I respect my ex-wife while moving on with my future." Bianca mulled it over. Part of her recoiled at the prospect of stepping back into Lucas's realm. Yet another part of her recognized that this might be the final push she needed to solidify her independence. Carefully, she replied, "Let me think about it." They finished their cappuccinos, exchanging polite farewells. As she walked away, Bianca felt a subtle shift, like a page turning in a book she'd once thought closed. Whether she would attend that gala remained uncertain, but at least, for the first time in a long while, she felt like she was writing her own next chapter. 1 month later, Bianca stood before her bedroom mirror, adjusting the emerald green gown she had chosen for the Langford Initiative benefit gala. She had decided, after much deliberation, to accept Lucas's invitation. Perhaps it was partly pride. She wanted to prove to herself she could handle the high society world without being overshadowed by her ex-husband's presence. Perhaps it was also a desire for the finality Lucas mentioned. The gala took place at the Langford family's elegant estate on Long Island. Twinkling lights draped over meticulously landscaped hedges, and a red carpet lined the entrance. Luxury vehicles pulled up one after another, depositing Manhattan's elite philanthropic luminaries and a smattering of celebrities. The Friedman and Friedman associates, John Friedman himself, and even high-profile tech gurus were in attendance. Bianca arrived alone, refusing to hide behind any escort or date. Stepping out of her taxi, she was immediately met with the blinding flashes of paparazzi cameras. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Lucas Davenport's ex-wife is here. She held her head high, offering a polite smile before gliding into the estate's marble-floored foyer, where live classical music greeted her. In the main hall, Corinne was the epitome of hostess grace, welcoming guests and introducing them to the charitable projects supported by the Langford Initiative. Lucas stood nearby, shaking hands and making introductions. When Bianca entered, a lull spread through the guests, as if everyone silently wondered how this tableau would unfold. Corinne was the first to approach. "Bianca, I'm so glad you came," she said, her tone friendly yet tinged with tension. "Thank you for supporting our cause." Bianca nodded, summoning every ounce of poise. "Thank you for inviting me. The venue looks magnificent." She could feel curious eyes upon her, but she maintained composure. She sensed Lucas inching closer, likely to confirm that everything was civil. No sooner had she uttered these words than a reporter from a major tabloid breezed up to them. "Davenport, Bianca, any comment on your attendance tonight? Does this signal a rekindling with Lucas, or are you burying the hatchet?" Before Bianca could respond, Corinne's polite yet firm voice intervened. "Bianca is here as our honored guest and friend, supporting the Langford Initiative. Please direct any further questions about personal matters to our PR team." The reporter hesitated, then slunk away, disappointed at being thwarted. Bianca stole a glance at Lucas, whose eyes held a mixture of relief and gratitude. For a while, the event proceeded smoothly. Bianca mingled with old acquaintances, praising the philanthropic focus, and even discussed potential PR strategies with Corinne. All seemed well until a new wave of gossip journalists arrived, and one brash paparazzo aimed a loaded question at Lucas across the crowd. "Hey, Lucas, are you reconciling with your ex or just showing off your new fiancé?" Lucas stiffened, and in a heartbeat, he crossed the space to Corinne. In front of everyone, with camera flashes capturing every second, he took Corinne in his arms and placed a lingering, passionate kiss on her lips. Gasps and cheers erupted around them. It was a bold, unmistakable declaration. He was with Corinne, not Bianca. Bianca's stomach twisted in knots as she watched the scene. A swirl of emotions threatened to overwhelm her: humiliation, heartbreak, and an odd sense of relief. She reminded herself that she had come for closure, and this moment certainly hammered home the final truth. Lucas was no longer hers, and she no longer belonged to that world. Whatever lingering illusions remained had just been shattered in one public moment. The photographs of Lucas's public kiss with Corinne went viral within hours. Glossy tabloids branded it the kiss that ended all rumors, praising Lucas for openly affirming his dedication to his new fiancée. Some outlets framed it as a triumphant moment of clarity, Others milked the drama by contrasting Corinne's radiant smile with Bianca's stoic expression in the background. For Bianca, the immediate aftermath was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She left the gala soon after the kiss, refusing to wallow in the public eye. On the drive back to her Manhattan hotel, she replayed the scene in her mind, each paparazzi flash seared into her memory. Part of her felt stung by the abrupt, borderline theatrical display of affection. Another part recognized it as the exact closure she'd needed, harsh maybe, but undeniably final. The next morning, her phone buzzed incessantly. Friends texted to see if she was okay. Acquaintances forwarded her article after article. Harriet Chang, a PR colleague from Detroit, called to express outrage. "That was beyond tacky," Harriet fumed. "He did it on purpose, to push you away. He humiliated you in front of everyone." But Bianca refused to indulge in anger. "It's done," she told Harriet softly. "Let him have his moment. I have my own life to live." Meanwhile, Lucas faced a wave of congratulatory messages from those interpreting his display as a noble stand for love. Private messages poured in from acquaintances who believed the kiss was a brilliant PR move to quell talk of lingering feelings for Bianca. Yet, in the quiet of his penthouse, he wrestled with a hollow ache. He had done exactly what he believed was necessary publicly and unequivocally, confirming his new life. So why did he feel uneasy? Corinne was overjoyed at first, seeing the coverage as a sign that no ghost from Lucas's past could overshadow their future. She teased him affectionately, calling him her knight in shining armor. However, she sensed Lucas's disquiet and gently pressed him for answers. Late at night, they sat by the penthouse's panoramic window overlooking the city lights. "What's bothering you?" Corinne asked, her voice quiet. "We did the right thing, yes?" Lucas studied her face, eventually nodding. "Yes, we did. I just hate that it might have hurt Bianca more than she deserved. But she's strong," he murmured, staring into the distance. "She'll move on." Corinne gently squeezed his hand. "You two had closure a long time ago, Lucas. Don't let guilt undermine what we have." She kissed his cheek, and he closed his eyes, trying to let that comfort him. For Bianca, the turning point arrived the following day, when she accepted a major PR contract to help organize a charity event in Chicago. She decided to leave Manhattan for a while, maybe permanently, and keep building her career on her own terms. Lucas had his life, Corinne by his side, and the tabloid headlines crowed about their unshakable bond. Bianca, however, chose to keep her head high and her heart open for whatever came next, a future distinctly her own, no longer tethered to the illusions of yesteryear. Bianca arrived in Chicago on a crisp spring morning, a fresh wind off Lake Michigan ruffling her hair as she stepped out of the taxi. Towering skyscrapers loomed overhead, and the city's bustling rhythm resonated in her bones. It felt like a new beginning, just the kind of energetic, revitalizing atmosphere she needed. Her first major contract in the Windy City was with the esteemed Anderson Foundation, an organization dedicated to supporting women entrepreneurs across the Midwest. The foundation's director, Janice Anderson, admired Bianca's tenacity and track record, promising her creative freedom to shape a large-scale fundraising gala. Despite the lingering ache from New York's fiasco, Bianca threw herself into the work with fierce dedication. Long hours were spent drafting press releases, courting media sponsors, and designing an event theme that would capture the essence of female empowerment. She built a team of savvy PR interns, mentors, and local influencers, forging strategic alliances with business moguls across Chicago. Although her mind occasionally wandered to thoughts of Lucas and Corinne's kiss, she refused to let it slow her progress. A new city, a new event, and a renewed sense of purpose propelled her forward. As weeks passed, Bianca's networks expanded. She collaborated with philanthropic powerhouses like Greta Winslow, an investment guru known for championing startups, and even met with real estate developers curious about her marketing savvy. Her success in Chicago turned heads, to the point that local socialites whispered, "Lucas Davenport's ex-wife is killing it here, she's unstoppable." Surprisingly, the further she distanced herself geographically from Lucas, the more she found her own professional identity blossoming. Freed from the overshadowing label of Davenport's ex, she was recognized for her intelligence, her empathy, and her ability to orchestrate remarkable events. She began receiving invitations to speak at panels, discussing PR strategies and personal branding. Ironically, the very tools she had once used to help Lucas build his empire. In her free time, she explored Chicago's cultural life. She took in jazz at a smoky downtown club, strolled through the Art Institute to appreciate world-class paintings, and jogged along the lakeside trail, feeling her lungs fill with fresh air. These small pockets of joy reminded her that life could be simple and fulfilling when not caught in the spotlight's glare. Personal relationships also bloomed. She made close friends among her Chicago colleagues, including a charming assistant named Daniel, who shared her love of architecture. They bonded over deep dish pizza and laughing about Chicago's infamous weather. Occasionally, men showed interest in Bianca romantically, but she was cautious, still nursing a delicate heart. She didn't want to risk losing herself again this time. She wanted to stand firmly on her own before letting anyone in. As the Anderson Foundation's gala date approached, excitement rose citywide. Word circulated about the top-tier guest list, which promised to bring together some of the biggest names in Midwest business and philanthropy. Behind the scenes, Bianca toiled, polishing every detail. She reveled in the knowledge that this was her moment, her chance to solidify her reputation, independent of any ties to her ex-husband. If there was ever a time to step out of the shadows, it was now. Fate has a twisted sense of timing. Just as Bianca's new life in Chicago soared, a quiet yet consequential development transpired in New York. Lucas Davenport's fiancée, Corinne, faced an unexpected personal crisis. Her father, Robert Langford, fell ill, causing the family to temporarily halt their high-profile philanthropic activities. With wedding plans derailed and the future uncertain, Corinne retreated from the public eye to focus on her father's care. During this difficult period, Lucas did his best to support her. He paused some business travels, shuttled between the hospital and the Langford estate, and maintained outward optimism, but inwardly he grappled with a creeping feeling of helplessness. He had never been good at waiting or dealing with unpredictability, qualities that often made him appear insensitive. Yet for Corinne, he wanted to be different, patient, compassionate, unwavering. That sense of powerlessness, ironically, led him to reflect on how he handled past relationships. He was forced to confront the reality that his solution to emotional unrest, grand gestures like the public kiss, only temporarily masked deeper insecurities. Time away from the tabloids, from the frenetic pace of deals, allowed him to see how much he relied on outward success to validate himself. He also wondered if Corinne harbored unspoken doubts about his sincerity, now that their glamorous life had taken an unexpected, sobering turn. In the midst of Corinne's father's illness, Lucas's personal assistant informed him of the upcoming Anderson Foundation Gala in Chicago, a major philanthropic event, rumored to be orchestrated by none other than Bianca. The notion that Bianca was thriving in a new city, forging her own path, struck a chord. For reasons he couldn't fully articulate, Lucas felt drawn to witness it firsthand. Perhaps it was curiosity, perhaps it was a lingering sense of guilt. Regardless, he found himself scanning flights to Chicago, When Lucas broached the idea of briefly traveling to Chicago to scout philanthropic ventures, Corinne was taken aback but didn't object. "It's fine," she whispered in a tired voice. "Dad's stable for the moment. If you believe it could help with future charitable deals, go. Just come back soon." The gravity of her father's health overshadowed any jealousy or suspicion she might otherwise have felt. Thus, Lucas set off for Chicago under the pretense of exploring philanthropic opportunities for Davenport Enterprises. Deep down, he also wanted to see Bianca congratulate her on her success, or simply witness her in a place where she was no longer overshadowed by him. But with Corinne at her father's bedside, and Lucas's head still swirling from the aftermath of their public kiss, he had no idea how his appearance in Chicago would be received. Meanwhile, Bianca, entirely oblivious to Lucas's intentions, prepared feverishly for the Anderson Foundation gala. She had no reason to suspect that the man who had once publicly kissed another woman to prove his devotion would soon show up in her newfound sanctuary. If she had known, she might have tried to forestall the collision course that threatened her carefully rebuilt life. But fate rarely extends such warnings. The Anderson Foundation Gala was set in Chicago's iconic Union Station, with its grand hall transformed into an elegant ballroom. Soft lighting illuminated towering Corinthian columns, while floral arrangements and shimmering drapes lent an air of opulence. Journalists, local celebrities, and philanthropic giants gathered to celebrate the Foundation's work in empowering women entrepreneurs. Bianca arrived early, micromanaging final touches. She checked place cards, chatted with the event staff, and made sure the PR interns handled media inquiries smoothly. Confidence radiated from her in a sleek, navy blue gown that contrasted sharply with her earlier choice at the Langford Gala. This was her event, her vision, and every detail had her signature flair. As guests trickled in, Bianca drifted among them, greeting donors and connecting them with the entrepreneurs they funded. Halfway through the evening, she checked her phone for final updates on a documentary crew that was filming soundbites for local television. Just then, she caught sight of a familiar figure stepping through Union Station's massive entrance doors, Lucas Davenport. Her heart jolted. Why is he here? She had received no prior warning. Clad in a tailored dark suit, Lucas looked every inch the billionaire magnate, but there was something subdued in his expression. Bianca initially froze, uncertain whether to approach or retreat. This gala, after all, was meant to signify her independence, and here stood a living reminder of her old life. Lucas, for his part, spotted her across the marble floor. He hesitated, sense of guilt and relief mixing in his chest. He had told no one of his attendance, not even the event organizers. He simply RSVP'd quietly as a potential donor from Davenport Enterprises. Now, he realized, he owed Bianca an explanation. Eventually, they converged near a towering floral arrangement. "Hi," Lucas began softly. "I hope you don't mind me coming. I've heard about the fantastic work Anderson Foundation does, and I wanted to learn more." Bianca forced a polite smile. "You're welcome to contribute, of course, but you might have given me a heads up." Her tone was curt, yet professional. "Don't let him rattle you," she told herself. He nodded, hands tucked in his pockets. "You're right. I'm sorry. Life's been complicated, but I heard you were the PR lead, and I wanted to see how you're doing, because from what I'm seeing, you're thriving." Despite her guarded stance, Bianca felt a flicker of satisfaction that he acknowledged her success. "Thank you," she replied simply. Then she added, "Where's Corinne?" Lucas's gaze dropped. "Her father's in the hospital. He's stable now. She's there with him." A fleeting sadness crossed his face. "We're postponing the wedding until he recovers." Sympathy tempered Bianca's defenses. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said softly, recalling the pang of hospital corridors and worried vigils. "I hope he recovers soon." Before Lucas could respond, the host took the stage, launching into speeches about the Foundation's mission. Polite applause rippled through the crowd, and cameras began rolling. With a subtle nod, Bianca excused herself to rejoin her duties, leaving Lucas at the fringes of the event to reflect on how drastically their dynamic had changed. Once they were inseparable co-hosts at lavish parties, now they were polite strangers navigating a gulf of history and heartbreak. Midway through the Anderson Foundation Gala, the official speeches wound down, replaced by informal mingling. The guests enjoyed a sumptuous buffet, and the swirling notes of a jazz quartet gave the event a refined ambience. Bianca kept busy introducing potential donors to the Foundation's beneficiaries. She glided from conversation to conversation, the polished PR professional in her element. Eventually, she was drawn to a corner of the hall by the sound of laughter from a small group of women entrepreneurs sharing their success stories. Among them stood Lucas, listening intently. He appeared genuinely engaged, at times nodding and asking thoughtful questions about their businesses. Bianca watched from a distance, remembering how incisive Lucas's mind could be, how he used to be the best partner, picking up on details others overlooked. When their eyes met, he offered a small smile. She approached cautiously, determined to maintain her composure. The group welcomed Bianca warmly, praising her role in orchestrating the entire event. Lucas stepped aside, letting her revel in the spotlight. After the group dispersed, leaving them momentarily alone, Lucas cleared his throat. "I spoke to a few entrepreneurs here, and I'm interested in investing, maybe even matching some donations." "It's impressive, Bianca, everything you're doing." She felt a rush of pride swirl with lingering sadness. "Thank you," she said, folding her arms. "My aim is to help these women find the support they never thought possible. The Anderson Foundation gave me creative freedom to design the event. It's nice to see results that aren't overshadowed by personal drama." He winced slightly, as if stung by the reminder of their shared past. "I'm genuinely happy for you. You look in your element," he managed, his voice sincere. "And I'm sorry for the spectacle at the Langford Gala. Corinne and I, well, the pressure from the media got to us." "I never meant to hurt you," Bianca exhaled. "I know, Lucas, but you have to understand, that sort of public demonstration drives home that your life and mine are completely separate now. I'm not going to lie, it stung, but maybe it was necessary." He studied her face, noticing the resolute calm. "Maybe so," he said softly. For a moment, a hush fell between them, overshadowed by the murmur of the crowd. "How about we find a quiet spot and talk for a minute?" He gestured to a side corridor leading to a gallery of vintage train memorabilia. After a brief pause, she nodded. They walked side by side, passing the occasional curious onlooker who recognized Lucas Davenport. Once alone in the hushed corridor, the echoes of the gala drifted away. A single overhead light shone on the polished marble floor, giving the space an unexpected intimacy. Lucas turned to face her, his expression thoughtful. "Corinne is everything I need in a partner right now," he began, as though clarifying where he stood. "But I still feel responsibility for the pain I caused you. I keep asking myself if there's more I could have done, if we could have parted ways with less heartache." Bianca pressed her lips together, recalling the frantic months leading up to their divorce. "I'm not sure, Lucas. Sometimes things break, and no matter how you try to fix them, the cracks remain. Our marriage was that way, but maybe we can both move on, truly, without bitterness." He reached out tentatively, resting his hand on her arm. "I'd like that," he said quietly. In the distant hum of the gala, the jazzy notes of a saxophone soared, a melodic backdrop to their fragile detente. As the evening wound to a close, Donors pledged millions of dollars to support female entrepreneurs through the Anderson Foundation. Bianca fielded endless congratulations on her success, her smile beaming with a mix of relief and pride. She saw Lucas in conversation with Janice Anderson, the foundation's director, discussing the logistics of his potential match donation. The sight no longer filled her with anxiety or regret. Instead, she felt something akin to gratitude, grateful that the man who once overshadowed her could now be an ally in her new life. When the final guests trickled out, leaving only the staff and a handful of stragglers behind, Bianca found herself in a moment of calm. She stepped away to the quiet corridor where they had spoken earlier, leaning against the cool marble wall to collect her thoughts. Moments later, Lucas appeared, as if drawn by the same hush. His tie was loosened, his expression a mixture of weariness and residual admiration for the night's success. "I've just finalized a donation with Janice," he said. "I'll be matching every contribution made tonight, up to a certain amount. It's my way of supporting a cause that you championed." Bianca lifted her chin, eyes shining with a faint tear of gratitude. "Thank you. That will change so many lives." He nodded, stepping closer but maintaining a respectful distance. "I'm leaving for New York tomorrow," he said. "Corinne needs me, and her father's condition is still delicate. I'd like to keep in touch with the Foundation's progress, only if that's all right with you." Her heartbeat steadied. "Of course, it's all right. This is bigger than both of us. As for me, I'm staying in Chicago for a while. I've got other projects on the horizon, and the city feels like home now." Lucas's gaze flickered over her face, as though memorizing every detail. "I hope you find the happiness you deserve here." He paused, then added, "We may not have parted on perfect terms, but I truly want the best for you, Bianca." She felt her throat tighten with an odd mixture of relief and lingering sadness. "And I want the best for you and Corinne. Life is complicated, and maybe it never goes exactly as planned, but that doesn't mean we can't find our own paths." They stood there for a moment in silence, the echoes of the gala fading into memory. No dramatic embraces, no confessions of undying love, just two people finally at peace with the choices that led them here. The tension from the public kiss, the humiliating headlines, the swirl of rumors, all seemed to dissipate in the face of sincere mutual respect. Finally, Lucas extended a hand. Bianca hesitated, then took it, a brief handshake that felt more meaningful than any grand gesture. "Goodbye, Bianca," he said quietly. She offered a gentle smile. "Goodbye, Lucas." Then they parted ways. Lucas disappeared down the corridor toward the exit, and Bianca lingered a moment longer, exhaling a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. Tomorrow, she would wake up with a stronger sense of self, free from the shadows of the past. As she flicked off the last set of lights in the hall, the Chicago night beckoned, full of possibilities. And this time, she stepped forward into the unknown without looking back. Sometimes the path to self-discovery leads us through heartache, scandal, and unexpected reunions. Lucas and Bianca's tumultuous journey, filled with ambition, love, betrayal, and second chances, reminds us that letting go of the past is often the bravest choice. Lucas found solace in Corinne's unwavering support, learning that public declarations don't always heal. Private wounds, but genuine introspection, can open the door to true change. Bianca forged her independence by redefining her career and self-worth far from the glitz of her former life.
They say money can't buy happiness. But for Chloe Vance, it was the only currency that mattered. She had her sights set on the ultimate prize, a New York City CEO, a penthouse, and a life dripping in diamonds. She played her part perfectly, the irresistible siren luring Julian Croft away from his pregnant wife. Chloe thought she was writing her own fairy tale, securing her future, one secret rendezvous at a time. She never imagined that every whispered promise, every stolen kiss, and every expensive gift was just a scene in a much larger play. A play written, directed, and starring the one woman she dismissed as a casualty, the wife. And the final act was about to bring her world crashing down in the most public, most humiliating way imaginable. The view from the 80th floor penthouse was an ocean of glittering lights. Manhattan stretched below a concrete and glass kingdom, and from this vantage point, Catherine Sterling Croft was its queen. Her hand rested gently on the subtle swell of her stomach, a protective gesture that had become second nature over the past 5 months. The baby there first was a secret joy. She and her husband, Julian Croft, had nurtured a final perfect piece to complete the portrait of their enviable lives. Julian was the charismatic founder and CEO of Croft Innovations, a tech behemoth that had disrupted the logistics industry. He was the new money wunderkind, celebrated on magazine covers for his sharp mind and even sharper suits. Catherine, by contrast, was old money Grace. The Sterlings were a name synonymous with New York philanthropy and quiet, unshakable influence. Their union had been the talk of the society pages, a merger of dynamic innovation and established prestige. From the outside, it was perfect. The sprawling apartment with its curated art, the weekend trips to their estate in the Hamptons, the effortless access to a world of impossible reservations and exclusive events. Julian was attentive often, bringing home ridiculously expensive floral arrangements for no reason, or whispering how her pregnancy had only made her more beautiful. But lately the perfection had begun to feel brittle, like a flawless porcelain vase with a hairline crack invisible to the casual observer, but threatening to shatter with the slightest tremor. It started with the phone. Julian had always been attached to it, a necessary evil of his trade. But now it was an extension of his hand, angled away from her with a new subtle secrecy. Late-night strategy sessions became more frequent. Business trips to London or Tokyo were extended by a day, then 2 with rushed, staticky apologies. "Another late one, darling?" Catherine asked one Tuesday evening, her voice carefully neutral. She was arranging white peonies in a crystal vase on the marble island in their kitchen. The scent filled the sterile air, a fragrant mask for the anxiety coiling in her gut. Julian loosened his tie, dropping his briefcase by the door with a heavy thud. "You wouldn't believe it. The board is breathing down my neck about the Q3 projections. We're on the verge of a massive breakthrough, but the pressure is immense." He walked over, kissing the top of her head. His cologne, a custom blend from a perfumer in Paris, smelled faintly of sandalwood and something else, a cloying sweetness that wasn't hers, a floral note, something cheap. She forced a smile. "Well, you need to take care of yourself. And us." She patted her stomach meaningfully. His eyes softened, the guilt flickering so quickly. She might have missed it if she weren't looking for it. "Of course, you two are my world. Everything I do is for you." But the words felt rehearsed, a script he was reciting to convince himself as much as her. A week later, the first real tremor struck. Catherine was organizing their monthly receipts for their business manager, a tedious task she nonetheless performed with meticulous care. Tucked between a charge for a $1,000 dinner at Per Se and a payment to Julian's tailor was a receipt from Cartier. It was for a Trinity bracelet, the interwoven bands of rose yellow and white gold. A classic. It was dated 3 weeks prior. Her heart did a slow, painful lurch. It wasn't her birthday. It wasn't their anniversary. She had certainly never received it. She called her best friend, Olivia Brent, a sharp-witted art gallery owner who had been her confidant since their days at boarding school. "Tell me I'm being a crazy hormonal pregnant woman," Catherine said, her voice tight after explaining the receipt. "You're pregnant, yes. Hormonal, probably. But crazy." "Not a chance," Olivia stated flatly. "Catherine, you have the best intuition of anyone I know. If you feel like something is wrong, something is wrong. Men like Julian, they live in a world of temptation. They think their success makes them invincible." "But he loves me, Liv. I know he does." "I'm sure he does," Olivia conceded gently. "But powerful men can be monumentally stupid. They compartmentalize. They think they can have the perfect wife and the bit on the side and keep the two worlds from ever colliding. What are you going to do?" Catherine looked around the silent, opulent apartment. The city lights outside seemed to mock her. "I don't know yet. I need more than a receipt. I need proof. If I accuse him and I'm wrong, I'll destroy what we have based on a feeling." "And if you're right, he's already destroying it," Olivia countered. "Be careful, Cat. Don't show your hand until you have a royal flush." The conversation solidified a cold resolve in her heart. The hurt was a deep physical ache, but beneath it the sterling steel was beginning to harden. She had not been raised to be a victim. She was a strategist, just like her father, a man who had dominated Wall Street for 40 years. She hired a private investigator, a discreet, expensive firm, recommended by her family's lawyer. She hated herself for it. It felt like a betrayal in itself, a clandestine act that sullied their marriage. But the Cartier receipt was a splinter in her mind, and she had to get it out. 2 weeks later, a plain manila envelope arrived via courier. Catherine waited until Julian had left for a weekend retreat with the board in Aspen. Her hands trembled as she sat at her rosewood desk, the city skyline, a grey, unforgiving backdrop. Inside were photographs, grainy, long-lens shots but unmistakable. Julian. He was laughing, his arm draped possessively around a young woman with fierce ambition in her eyes and a mane of artificially blonde hair. They were stepping out of a boutique hotel in Soho. In another photo, they were dining at a dimly lit table, their heads close together. In the final damning shot, the woman was lifting her wrist to admire her new piece of jewelry. The Cartier Trinity bracelet. The air left Catherine's lungs in a silent scream. The vase didn't just have a crack. It had been shattered into a million pieces at her feet. The pain was blinding, a white-hot agony that consumed her. It wasn't just the betrayal of his body, but the casual cruelty of it. The lies whispered in their bed, the stolen moments, the gift, a symbol of trinity, of interconnectedness, given to another woman, while his wife carried their child. She wept. For hours, she let the grief wash over her, a storm of tears for the man she thought she knew and the life she believed they were building. She cried for her unborn child, who would be born into a fractured home. But as the sun began to set, casting long, mournful shadows across the room, the tears subsided. The storm passed, and in its wake there was a chilling, profound calm. The hurt was still there, a cold, heavy stone in her chest, but it was no longer her master. It was fuel. Olivia was wrong. A royal flush wasn't enough. Confronting him would lead to tearful apologies, empty promises, a messy divorce where lawyers would pick over the bones of their life. Chloe, the woman in the photos, would likely get a settlement and fade away, a minor footnote in their drama. Julian might even eventually be forgiven. No. That was not justice. That was not a solution. It was a concession. A simple divorce was a release. What Julian and that woman deserved was a lesson, a reckoning, a meticulously crafted, perfectly executed ruin that would not only end their affair, but would dismantle the very foundation of the mistress's ambition and force Julian to confront the chasm of his own weakness. She picked up her phone, her hand steady now. She didn't call a lawyer. She called the one person in the world she knew would understand the need for something more than just revenge. The one person who would relish the game. Her brother, Marcus Sterling. "Marcus," she said, her voice devoid of any emotion. "I need your help. It's about Julian, and I have a plan." Chloe Vance believed in manifestation. Not the gentle yoga and incense kind, but a ruthless, focused targeting of desire. And her desire had a name, the 1%. From her cramped studio apartment in Bushwick, a stark contrast to the world she craved, she would scroll through Instagram and Forbes, studying the habitats and habits of the ultra-rich. She saw herself not as an outsider looking in, but as a predator studying her prey. Her friend Zara, who worked as a bottle service girl in a meat-packing district club, was her co-conspirator and enabler. "Look, Chloe," Zara had said, perched on the edge of Chloe's bed and filing her acrylic nails. "You're gorgeous, you're smart, and you're hungry. Don't waste that on some broke artist who thinks sharing an Uber is splurging. You're built for better things. You just need the right launch pad." Chloe couldn't agree more. She'd worked for 2 years as a junior marketing associate at a stodgy second-tier tech firm, watching men with half her wit and 1/10 of her drive get promoted because they'd gone to the right schools or played golf with the right people. She saw the system was rigged, so she'd decided to rig it back in her favor. Marriage, she concluded, was the fastest, most effective merger and acquisition a woman like her could execute. Julian Croft became her target by design. She'd read a feature on him in Wired magazine detailing his meteoric rise. He was brilliant, driven, and most importantly married to a woman who seemed in Chloe's estimation to be a boring, old-money placeholder. Catherine Sterling Croft was beautiful in a classical, understated way, but she lacked the fire, the edge that Chloe cultivated. She was a museum piece. Chloe was a living flame. Chloe engineered their first meeting with the precision of a military campaign. She learned from a disgruntled ex-employee on LinkedIn that Julian often went for a solitary drink at the Aviary, a high-end cocktail bar in Columbus Circle, to decompress after a tough week. She chose her armor carefully, a silk slip dress that was just a little too daring for the venue heels that made her legs look endless, and a perfume, a heady, almost aggressive gardenia scent that was impossible to ignore. She sat at the bar, nursing a single expensive cocktail, and waited. When Julian walked in, looking weary and powerful, she accidentally caught his eye and gave him a small conspiratorial smile. As he sat a few stools down, she pretended to be engrossed in a book, ironically, a biography of Napoleon. It took him less than 10 minutes. "That looks like heavy reading for a Friday night," he said, his voice as smooth as the aged whiskey the bartender was pouring for him. Chloe looked up, feigning surprise. "I find it's best to learn from those who knew how to conquer the world." She closed the book, her fingers tracing the title. "Chloe Vance," she said, extending a hand. Her nails were immaculate, painted a deep predatory red. "Julian Croft." "I know," she said with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. "Everyone in the tech world knows who you are." The hook was in. He was flattered. Over the next hour, she played him like a virtuoso. She was impressed by his work, but not starstruck. She challenged his opinions on market trends, showing she was more than just a pretty face. She listened intently, her gaze never wavering, making him feel like the only man in the universe. She was a perfect cocktail of intellect, beauty, and unabashed admiration. She never mentioned his wife. When he glanced at his wedding ring, a solid platinum band, she simply let her eyes follow his. A flicker of something disappointment, understanding passing through them before she smiled and changed the subject. She was planting a seed she doesn't judge, she understands. He walked her to the curb to get a taxi. "I shouldn't," he said, the internal conflict clear on his face. "But I'd love to continue this conversation." "I'm not a home wrecker, Julian," she said softly, placing a hand on his arm. Her touch was electric. "But I'm also not blind. I see a man who isn't being celebrated. If you ever want to talk to someone who gets it, you have my number." She had already written it on a napkin and slipped it into his suit pocket when he wasn't looking. It was a bold, presumptive move, and it paid off. He texted her the next day. Their affair escalated quickly from discreet lunches in out-of-the-way bistros to afternoons in the sterile luxury of a suite at the Greenwich Hotel. Chloe was everything Catherine wasn't. Where Catherine was calm, Chloe was fiery. Where Catherine's world was one of quiet legacy, Chloe's was one of fierce, palpable ambition. She made Julian feel like a king, a conqueror, not just a husband. "She doesn't understand the pressure you're under," Chloe would murmur, tracing the lines of his jaw as they lay in the post-coital tangle of hotel sheets. Her money was inherited. Yours is earned. It's different. It's real. She was an expert at identifying his insecurities and soothing them. She praised his riskiest business decisions, validated his frustrations with his board of directors, and made him feel seen in a way he hadn't in years. She was the ultimate cheerleader for the cult of Julian Croft, and he in turn showered her with gifts. It started small, a bouquet of exotic orchids delivered to her apartment, a first-edition book she'd mentioned. Then it escalated. A shopping spree on Fifth Avenue, a weekend in Miami on a business trip, and then the Cartier bracelet. He presented it to her in their hotel room. The famous red box sat on the pillow. Chloe's heart hammered in her chest. This was it. This was the moment a man transitions a woman from a dalliance to an investment. "Julian, it's beautiful." She breathed her performance of awe-struck gratitude. Pitch perfect. She allowed a single tear to trace a path down her cheek. "But you shouldn't have." "I wanted it to," he said, his voice thick with a mixture of desire and guilt. "You deserve beautiful things." As he fastened the cool gold around her wrist, she looked at her reflection in the mirror. The bracelet was a shackle of a different kind, one of victory. She had him. The CEO was hers. She thought of his pregnant wife somewhere in their palatial penthouse, probably arranging flowers or planning a nursery, blissfully unaware. Chloe felt a flash of pity, quickly replaced by a surge of triumph. The woman hadn't fought for her man. She had grown complacent, secure in her position, and had left the door wide open for someone like Chloe to walk right in. "What are you thinking about?" Julian asked, kissing her shoulder. Chloe met his eyes in the mirror, her expression a carefully constructed mask of adoration. "I'm thinking," she said, her voice a seductive whisper, "that I'm the luckiest woman in the world." She was playing the long game. The bracelet was a down payment. The end goal was the full buyout. His name, his fortune, his life. The pregnant wife was a temporary obstacle, one that Chloe was confident would soon be removed. She had studied her target, laid her trap, and secured her prize. She was the serpent in their Eden, and she had just convinced Adam to take the first bite. She was so focused on the apple, she never once thought to look up and see God watching. The days following the arrival of the investigator's report were a masterclass in composure for Catherine. On the surface, nothing changed. She continued her work with the Sterling Family Foundation, attended her prenatal yoga classes, and discussed nursery color palettes with an interior designer. She greeted Julian with a serene smile when he returned from his board retreat, a weekend he'd spent with Chloe in a luxury ski lodge according to the PI's follow-up email. She listened to his stories of high-altitude negotiations, her heart a frozen stone in her chest. Each lie he told was another brick in the wall she was building around it. Her grief, once a raging inferno, had been banked and forged into something cold, sharp, and patient. This was no longer about a broken heart. It was about protecting her legacy and her child's future from the collateral damage of Julian's weakness and his mistress's greed. Her brother Marcus Sterling arrived at the penthouse 2 days after her call. He was Catherine's opposite in many ways. While she was composed and classical, Marcus was a whirlwind of creative energy and roguish charm. He'd flirted with acting in his 20s, much to their father's chagrin, before finding his niche in venture capitalism, backing boutique hotels and eccentric art projects. He had a chameleon's ability to adapt to any situation and an actor's love for a dramatic role. Most importantly, he was fiercely loyal to his sister. He found her in the library, the damning photos spread across the antique desk. He looked at them, his jaw tightening, then at his sister's pale, determined face. "I could have him ruined on Wall Street by morning," Marcus said, his voice low and dangerous. A few calls, a few whispered rumors about instability at Croft Innovations. His stock would plummet. Catherine shook her head, pushing the photos into a neat pile. "No, that hurts me. It hurts the baby. And it's too simple. Julian's crime isn't just infidelity. It's arrogance. He thinks he's untouchable. And this woman," she gestured to the image of Chloe laughing and radiant with Julian's stolen affection, "her crime is ambition. She doesn't want Julian. She wants what he represents, a key to a kingdom she feels entitled to." So we don't destroy the kingdom," Catherine said, her eyes gleaming with a cold, intelligent light. "We present her with a bigger one. We make her believe she's trading up. We make her discard Julian like he's last season's handbag." Marcus leaned back, a slow, appreciative smile spreading across his face. He recognized the look in his sister's eyes. It was the same look their father got before a hostile takeover. "Oh, this is much better than my idea. You want to humiliate them both. You want to make him feel the sting of being tossed aside for a better offer. And you want to strip her of everything when she reaches for it. This is diabolical. I love it. Tell me the plan." For the next 4 hours they plotted. It was a creative, exhilarating process, a dark storm of ingenuity that pushed Catherine's pain into the background. They were no longer the victim and the avenger. They were architects. The cornerstone of their plan was a new character, Sebastian Thorne. "He needs to be everything Julian is, but more," Catherine dictated, pacing back and forth. "If Julian is a millionaire, Sebastian is a billionaire. If Julian has a penthouse, Sebastian has a private island. If Julian flies first class, Sebastian owns the jet." Marcus, a natural performer, was already getting into character. "He's not American," he declared. "Too easy to check. He's European, old family, but he made his own fortune. Media shy, a recluse. No social media footprint to speak of, which makes him mysterious and impossible to Google stalk effectively. They built Sebastian Thorn from the ground up. He was the heir to a defunct German industrial fortune who had brilliantly reinvested in rare earth minerals and private space exploration. His company, Thorn Global, was based in Zurich, with satellite offices in Hong Kong and London. He was in New York for a few months to quietly explore new investment opportunities. "We need to create a legend," Marcus said, scribbling notes on a legal pad. "He needs to be seen in the right places, but only briefly. A flash of impossible wealth." They began to choreograph the operation. Phase 1. The sighting. Marcus as Sebastian would start appearing at the periphery of the high-end world. He'd attend a Christie's auction and outbid a known hedge fund manager for a piece of modern art. He'd be seen dining at Daniel, but in the private skybox, a privilege reserved for a select few. He wouldn't interact. He would only be observed. Whispers would start. Who is that man? Phase 2, the lure. They needed to get Sebastian and Chloe in the same room. Olivia Catherine's art gallery owner friend was brought into the circle of trust. Her upcoming gallery opening, showcasing a trendy new photographer, was the perfect venue. Chloe, eager to be seen as a patron of the arts and to elevate her social standing, would undoubtedly be there on Julian's arm. That's where Sebastian will make his first move, Catherine planned. Subtle. He'll admire the same piece of art she's looking at. He'll make a quiet, insightful comment. He won't try to pick her up. He'll just plant a seed of intrigue. Phase 3. The escalation. This was the core of the honey trap. Sebastian would orchestrate a series of chance encounters. He would overwhelm Chloe not with crude displays of cash, but with a level of sophistication and access that would make Julian's world seem provincial. He wouldn't just send flowers. He'd send a rare orchid that was flown in that morning from Costa Rica with a simple handwritten note in German. He wouldn't offer a shopping spree. He'd mention he was flying to Milan for a suit fitting and casually ask if she'd like to join him. "We need to make Julian look like the minor leagues." Marcus grinned, the thrill of the performance dancing in his eyes. "We need her to see Julian as a stepping stone she's outgrown." Phase 4. The trap. The final act would take place at the Sterling Family Foundation's annual charity gala. It was the pinnacle of the New York social calendar, an event Chloe would be desperate to attend as a sign of her arrival. By then, Catherine calculated Chloe would have left Julian and would be expecting to make her grand debut on the arm of the elusive billionaire Sebastian Thorn. That's where the curtain would fall. To make Sebastian Thorn real, they spared no expense. Marcus was given a new wardrobe of bespoke suits, a Patek Philippe watch from the family vault, and a black Amex card with no conceivable limit. They rented a black Maybach with a driver. They even had their tech team create a shell website for Thorn Global, a single elegant landing page with a login portal and the words discretion, vision, power. As they finalized the details, Marcus looked at his sister with a newfound respect. The fragile, heartbroken woman was gone. In her place was a general commanding an army. "Are you sure about this cat?" he asked quietly, the game momentarily forgotten. "Once this starts, there's no going back. For you and Julian either." Catherine looked out at the city lights, her reflection, a pale ghost in the glass. Her hand went to her belly. "Julian and I, as we were." That ended the moment he gave another woman that bracelet. "I'm not destroying my marriage, Marcus. I'm discovering what's left of it, and I'm protecting my child's birthright from a predator. This isn't just revenge on her. It's a test for him. Let's see how he reacts when the worm turns. Let's see what he's made of when he's the one who gets thrown away. Her voice was as cut and clear as ice. The plan was in motion. The architect had drawn the blueprints. Now it was time to start building the trap. The trap was baited at Olivia Brent's gallery, opening in Chelsea. The cavernous, white space buzzed with the city's self-appointed cultural elite. Champagne flowed and the air crackled with networking and air kisses. Chloe arrived, clinging to Julian's arm like a trophy. She was wearing a crimson dress that was a shade too loud for the minimalist art on the walls, a deliberate choice to ensure she stood out. She surveyed the room with the keen eye of a hawk cataloguing the influential faces, desperate to be seen to be included. Julian looked distracted. A man pulled in two directions. He introduced Chloe to a few acquaintances, with a forced casualness that didn't go unnoticed, referring to her as a marketing consultant. The lie hung awkwardly in the air. Catherine had prepared Marcus meticulously. "Don't approach her directly," she'd instructed. "Let her see you. Let her feel your presence before you ever say a word." Marcus, in his persona as Sebastian Thorne, was a masterpiece of understated power. He wore a dark, tailored suit with no tie, a look of effortless European elegance. He didn't mingle. He stood alone near a large, dramatic photograph of a stormy sea, a glass of mineral water in his hand, observing the scene with a look of detached amusement. He radiated an aura of such profound self-assurance that he created his own gravitational pull. People noticed him. They whispered. Chloe noticed him. While Julian was cornered by a tech journalist, she found her eyes drifting to the mysterious stranger. He was handsome, but more than that, he was intriguing. He wasn't working the room. He was above it. As she moved to get a fresh glass of champagne, she found herself standing near the same photograph he was observing. "It's powerful, isn't it?" A deep voice with a faint, unplaceable European accent said beside her. She turned. It was him. Up close, his presence was even more formidable. "It is," she managed her voice, a little breathless. "It feels chaotic and beautiful at the same time." "A perfect metaphor for life," he said, his eyes scanning the photograph, not her. "It's by a German artist I collect. He manages to capture the sublime terror of nature. Most people just see a pretty picture of a wave." He finally turned his gaze to her, and his eyes, a startlingly clear blue, seemed to look right through her. "You don't strike me as someone who just sees the pretty picture." Chloe felt a jolt. He wasn't just complimenting her looks, he was complimenting her perception. It was a far more sophisticated line than any she had heard before. "I try not to be," she said, her voice dropping to a more intimate register. "I am Sebastian," he said, giving a slight bow of his head instead of offering a hand, a deliberately formal old-world gesture. "Chloe," she replied. Before she could say more, Julian reappeared at her side. "Everything okay?" he asked, his arm sliding possessively around her waist. He eyed Sebastian with a flicker of territorial suspicion. Sebastian gave Julian a dismissive glance, a micro-expression of such profound disinterest that it was more insulting than any glare. "Enjoy the evening," he said to Chloe, and then he simply turned and walked away, melting into the crowd. The seed was planted. Over the next 2 weeks, Sebastian Thorne executed Phase 3 with surgical precision. The encounters were always seemingly by chance, yet perfectly engineered to showcase the chasm between Julian's wealth and Sebastian's. One afternoon, as Chloe was having lunch with her friend Zara at an outdoor cafe in Soho, a sleek black Maybach purred to a stop at the curb. The driver opened the door, and Sebastian Thorne emerged, He spotted Chloe, and a slow smile spread across his face. He came over to their table. "Miss Vance, a pleasure to see you again," he said. Zara was staring, her jaw practically on the table. He didn't stay long. He was on his way to a meeting, something about geothermal prospecting in Iceland. He dropped the phrase so casually, it was like someone else mentioning a trip to the grocery store. Before leaving, he looked at the wilted rose in the small vase on their table. The next morning, the reception desk at Chloe's marketing firm called her. A delivery had arrived. It was a breathtaking arrangement of black baccarat roses, so dark they were almost velvet, with a simple card. These seemed more fitting. There was no phone number, no desperate plea for a date, just a gesture of overwhelming, mysterious elegance. Julian had sent her roses the week before, a standard dozen red ones that now seemed pathetic by comparison. The final decisive blow came a week later. Chloe was complaining to Julian over dinner about her frustration with her job. "They're so small-minded, Julian. I have ideas that could revolutionize their entire strategy, but they won't listen." "It takes time to climb the ladder, honey," Julian had said a touch condescendingly. The very next day, a courier delivered a thick envelope to her office. Inside was a first-class ticket to Milan on a private charter dated for the upcoming weekend. The note was brief. "I'm told the finest business armor is forged in Italy. I have a fitting with my tailor Brioni. I've taken the liberty of arranging a consultation for you as well. A mind like yours deserves a wardrobe to match. A car will be at your apartment on Saturday morning. It is, of course, entirely your choice." This was it. This was the checkmate move. It wasn't just a gift. It was a challenge. It was an invitation into a world Julian Croft, for all his millions, couldn't access. The world of private jets, bespoke Italian suits, and casual globe-trotting power. She looked at the Cartier bracelet on her wrist. A few weeks ago, it had felt like the ultimate prize. Now it felt like a trinket, a consolation prize from the minor leagues. Her decision was swift and brutal. She broke up with Julian that night in his car after he'd taken her to dinner. He was talking about a potential site for a new distribution center in New Jersey. His world suddenly seemed so small, so domestic. "Julian, I don't think this is working," she said, her voice cool and practiced. He was stunned. "What are you talking about? We were just in Miami. I bought you—" "This isn't about what you can buy me," she lied, cutting him off. "It's about ambition. I need to be with someone who is bigger, who sees the whole world as a chessboard, not just a single market sector. I think you've gotten comfortable. I haven't." The words were chosen to wound his ego, the most vulnerable part of any man like him. He was speechless. He, Julian Croft, the tech titan, being told he wasn't ambitious enough. By the woman he had risked his marriage for. The irony was lost on him, submerged in the sting of rejection. "Is there someone else?" he finally asked, his voice tight with wounded pride. Chloe gave him a pitying look. "Don't be ridiculous," she said, leaving the question hanging just enough to be a yes. "I just think we want different things. I wish you the best, Julian. Truly." She got out of the car and walked away without looking back, leaving him sitting in the stunned, humiliated silence. She felt a moment pang of something. Not guilt, but perhaps the thrill of the kill. She had discarded a CEO. She was on her way to bigger things. Back in her apartment, she packed. She looked at the ticket to Milan, her heart pounding with triumphant anticipation. She was Chloe Vance, and she was about to be outfitted in the armor of a queen, ready to take her place beside a true king. She had played the game and won. The invitation to the Sterling Foundation Gala had arrived in the mail that day, a thick, creamy card with embossed lettering. She had initially planned to pressure Julian into taking her. Now she would arrive with Sebastian Thorne. It would be her true coronation. She imagined the look on the face of Julian's mousy, pregnant wife when she saw who had replaced her. It was all falling into place more perfectly than she could have ever imagined. The grand ballroom of the Pierre Hotel was a symphony of opulence. Crystal chandeliers, each the size of a small car, dripped light onto a sea of New York's most powerful and influential figures. The theme of the Sterling Family Foundation Gala was Foundations for the Future, a celebration of the charity's work in funding education for underprivileged children. For the guests, however, it was the ultimate arena for showcasing status and wealth. Chloe Vance made her entrance feeling like she had finally arrived at the center of the universe. She wore a gown of liquid silver, a custom piece she'd acquired in Milan on her whirlwind trip with Sebastian. It clung to her every curve, audacious and dazzling. On her arm, however, was not the billionaire she expected. Sebastian had called her that afternoon, his voice a smooth apology. A sudden, unavoidable crisis with his Zurich office. A satellite launch had experienced a minor orbital deviation. The words were so fantastically important, so far beyond the scope of normal life, that she couldn't possibly be upset. "I will be there, my dear, I promise," he'd said. "But I will be late. Please go ahead. My driver will take you. I want you to make your entrance. You will be the most radiant woman in the room. I will find you the moment I arrive." So she had arrived alone, a move that was in itself a statement of confidence. She walked in, not as a +1, but as a woman who belonged. She could already feel the whispers, see the curious glances. Who is she? The story she would tell that she was waiting for. Sebastian Thorne would only add to her mystique. Her eyes scanned the room. Searching. She saw Julian almost immediately. He was standing near the bar, looking drawn and haggard, nursing a scotch. He saw her, and his face tightened with a mixture of pain and anger. Chloe met his gaze for a moment, giving him a small, pitying smile before turning away. The satisfaction was exquisite. Then she saw her. Catherine Sterling Croft was standing at the center of a small group, the undeniable focal point of the room. She was not in a flashy gown, but an elegant, deep blue velvet dress that fell gracefully over her pregnant form. Diamonds glittered at her throat and ears, the kind of quiet, heavy jewels that are passed down through generations, not bought on a whim. She wasn't trying to be the center of attention. She simply was. She radiated a serene, unshakable power that made Chloe's silver dress suddenly feel cheap and desperate. The two women's eyes met across the crowded room. Catherine offered a polite, enigmatic smile, a queen acknowledging a courtier. Determined to seize the moment, Chloe began to circulate, dropping Sebastian's name into conversations with calculated nonchalance. "Oh, this old thing," she'd say of her dress. "Sebastian insisted I have it made in Milan." Or, "Sebastian is hoping to make it, he's just dealing with a minor orbital deviation with one of his satellites." The reactions were a mixture of awe and confusion, which was exactly what she wanted. An hour into the event, a hush fell over the room as Catherine took to the stage to give the welcome address. She spoke eloquently about the Foundation's mission, her voice calm and clear. "We build foundations for children," she said, her eyes sweeping the room. But we must also be vigilant about the foundations of our own lives. We must ensure they are built on trust, integrity, and truth. Because when those foundations are weak, everything built upon them is at risk of collapse. The words seemed to hang in the air, freighted with a meaning that only a few people in the room could begin to grasp. Julian shifted uncomfortably. Chloe felt a prickle of unease. After her speech, Catherine descended the stage and began to move through the room. Chloe watched her, a predator sizing up her rival. She decided now was the time. She would go over, introduce herself, and deliver the final killing blow, the casual mention of her new superior benefactor. But before she could move, Catherine was walking directly toward her. "Miss Vance," Catherine said, her voice smooth as silk. "I'm Catherine Croft. I don't believe we've been formally introduced." Chloe was momentarily thrown. She had expected to be the one in control of this encounter. "It's a pleasure," Chloe said, recovering quickly. "Your speech was very moving." "Thank you," Catherine replied, her eyes holding Chloe's. "I saw you come in alone. Are you waiting for someone?" This was the opening. "I'm actually," Chloe said, a triumphant smile playing on her lips. "Sebastian Thorne. I'm not sure if you know him. He's quite private." Catherine's smile widened. "Sebastian Thorne," she repeated, tasting the name. "Yes, I know him very well. In fact, he's just arrived." Chloe's heart leapt. She turned her eyes, scanning the grand entrance, expecting to see the handsome, powerful man who was about to solidify her new life. "Allow me to make the introduction," Catherine said, and raised a hand. From the crowd, a man emerged, walking toward them. But it wasn't the suave European billionaire. It was Marcus Sterling, Catherine's brother. He was wearing the same bespoke suit and the Patek Philippe watch, but his expression was different. The cool detachment was gone, replaced by a look of wry, theatrical amusement. Chloe stared, her mind refusing to process what she was seeing. "You're—" "Her brother," Marcus said, gesturing to Catherine. "Marcus Sterling, at your service." He gave a mocking bow. "Though for the past few weeks you've known me as Sebastian." The blood drained from Chloe's face. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. The murmurs around them, which had been a gentle buzz, were now a roaring in her ears. She looked from Marcus's smirking face to Catherine's calm, victorious expression. I don't understand," Chloe stammered, the words catching in her throat. "I think you do," Catherine said, her voice dropping to a cold, precise whisper, meant only for Chloe. "You thought you found a bigger fish. You thought you could discard my husband because you'd found a billionaire. But the billionaire was a fantasy, a story, one we wrote just for you." Chloe's eyes darted around. People were staring openly now, their phones half raised. She saw Olivia Brent standing nearby, a look of grim satisfaction on her face. She saw Julian frozen by the bar, his face a mask of dawning abject horror as he finally understood the full scope of what was happening. He wasn't just a cheated-on husband. He was a pawn in his wife's brutal, intricate game of revenge. He had been discarded and humiliated by Chloe, only to discover that his own wife had orchestrated the entire thing. "Every chance meeting," Marcus explained, enjoying his monologue. "Every gift, every flight. Every word I said to you was a line in a script written by my sister. You're not a gold digger, Chloe. You're just a fool. You fell for the oldest trick in the book, your own greed." The humiliation was a physical force pressing in on her, stealing the air from her lungs. The silver dress felt like a suit of armor that had just been melted onto her skin. Her grand entrance had become a public execution. "My husband was weak. Catherine said, her voice cutting through Chloe's shock. "And you are predatory. You both deserved a lesson in consequences. You, Miss Vance, wanted a foundation of wealth. Instead, you'll be a cautionary tale. And my husband," she glanced over at Julian, her eyes like chips of ice, "has learned what it feels like to be deemed not enough." Chloe stood there, stripped bare, in the center of the glittering ballroom. The life she had fantasized about, the victory, she had tasted all of it, was a lie, a carefully constructed stage, and she was the only one who hadn't known she was an actor in a tragedy. She turned and fled, pushing through the crowd of stunned, whispering faces, the sound of their judgment chasing her out into the cold New York night. Catherine watched her go, her expression unreadable. She had not raised her voice. She had not cried. She had simply taken a predator, a problem, and dismantled it with the cold, quiet efficiency of a bomb disposal expert. She then turned her gaze back to her husband, who stood pale and broken across the room. The first part of her plan was complete. The second was about to begin. The aftermath of the gala was a bloodbath in the gossip columns and social media feeds. The story was too delicious to ignore the ambitious mistress, the fake billionaire, and the brilliant pregnant wife who had orchestrated the most elaborate revenge plot New York society had ever seen. The Sterling Gambit, one blog dubbed it. Chloe Vance became an overnight pariah. Her name, her face, her carefully curated ambition, all were now punchlines. She was fired from her marketing job for conduct unbecoming of the company's image. Her landlord started eviction proceedings. The friends who had cheered on her gold-digging like Zara vanished as if they'd never existed. Chloe was erased, a ghost haunting the city she had tried to conquer. But for Catherine, the public humiliation of her rival was only the first step. The true test, the real reconstruction, had to happen within the silent, opulent walls of their penthouse. Julian came home that night, or rather in the early hours of the morning, a broken man. The arrogance had been flayed from him, leaving behind a raw, quivering shame. He found Catherine in the living room, sitting in an armchair, bathed in the soft glow of a single lamp. The city lights twinkled behind her, oblivious. He started with the usual script. The apologies, the pleas, the self-flagellation. "Catherine, I am so sorry. I was a fool, an idiot. I don't know what I was thinking. I love you. I love our baby. Please, please forgive me." The words tumbled out, desperate and rehearsed. Catherine listened patiently, her hands resting on her stomach. She let him exhaust himself, let the silence fall after his pathetic monologue. When she finally spoke, her voice was not angry. It was not hurt. It was the calm, measured voice of a CEO outlining the terms of a merger, and it terrified him more than any shouting match could have. "Stop," she said simply. The word cut through his pleading. "Your apology is irrelevant right now. It's a reflex. You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry you were made to look like a fool. The kind of sorrow that matters, the kind that leads to change, takes time to cultivate. You haven't had that time. What do you want me to do?" he whispered, his voice cracking. "I'll do anything." "I know you will," she said, "because you're cornered. What I want is not for you to do anything. What I want is for you to understand why I did what I did." She stood up and walked to the window looking out over their kingdom. This wasn't just about punishing that woman, Julian. This was about you. You have a fundamental weakness. It's your ego. It needs constant validation. And when you felt the slightest bit neglected or bored, you sought it elsewhere. You didn't just have an affair. You risked everything. Our family, Our future, the stability this child deserves for a cheap thrill and an ego boost. She turned back to him. I could have divorced you. I could have taken half of your company and walked away. My family would have supported me. But that felt insufficient. Because the problem, your weakness, would remain. You would just find another woman and another, and our child would grow up with a father who was a revolving door of indiscretions. She walked to the desk and picked up a thick folder of documents her lawyer had drawn up that week. She placed it on the coffee table between them. So this is what is going to happen. This is not a negotiation. He looked at the folder as if it were a bomb. This is a post-nuptial agreement, she explained. It transfers 60% of your shares in Croft Innovations, along with a controlling interest in our joint liquid assets, into a trust. A trust for our child of which I am the sole trustee until they come of age. You will retain your title as CEO. You will still draw your salary. But your decision-making power in the company and in our finances is now shared. I will have a permanent seat on the board. Your personal spending will be subject to review. We will be partners in the truest sense of the word, Julian. Your kingdom is no longer solely yours. He stared at her aghast. This was more than punishment. This was a coup, a complete restructuring of their entire existence. You're taking my company, he breathed. No, she corrected him calmly. I am protecting our family's primary asset. You proved you were a poor steward, that you could be compromised. So I am installing a new system of checks and balances. Think of me as your personal board of directors. He saw the checkmate. If he refused, she would divorce him, and the ensuing scandal, combined with the loss of the Sterling family's backing and connections, would gut the company anyway. He would lose her his child and a massive chunk of his fortune. Her plan gave him a path, however narrow and humbling, to keep all three. And us? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. What happens to us? We will stay married, Catherine said. Our child will be born with a father and a mother under the same roof. You will sleep in the guest room. You will attend counseling. You will work every single day to earn back a fraction of the trust you shattered. Forgiveness is not on the table. It is not something I can give you right now. But you may in time earn the right to ask for it again. She laid out the new foundation of their life built upon the ashes of the old one. There was no passion in her voice, only purpose. She had seen the crack in their gilded cage, and instead of trying to patch it, she had torn it down and was now building a fortress in its place. A fortress to protect her child. Julian Croft, the tech visionary. The master of his universe finally understood true power. It wasn't in flashy deals or public acclaim. It was in the quiet, unyielding resolve of the woman standing before him. He had mistaken her grace for weakness, her composure for complacency. He now saw it for what it was, the calm surface of a deep and formidable ocean. He picked up a pen, his hand shaking, and signed the documents. He signed away control of the empire he had built, handing the keys to the woman he had betrayed. It was the end of his reign, and for Catherine and the child she carried, it was the beginning of a new, unshakable dynasty, founded not on a naive belief in love, but on the cold, hard certainty of control. Their future would not be a fairy tale, but it would be secure. And in their world, that was the only happily ever after that truly mattered. And there you have it, a story not just of infidelity, but of breathtaking strategy and icy revenge. Catherine Croft proves that the most dangerous woman is not the one who screams and throws plates, but the one who smiles, waits and dismantles her enemies with the precision of a chess grandmaster. She didn't just get even. She rewrote the rules of the entire game, securing her child's future and putting her husband firmly in his place. What did you think of her plan? Was it brilliant justice or a step too far? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you love stories of drama, intrigue, and powerful people getting exactly what they deserve, make sure to hit that like button and share this video with someone who appreciates a well-served plate of revenge. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next real-life drama. You never know whose perfect world is about to come crashing down.